You might also hear these apps described as the ERP apps. But here's the cool thing. With this class, if you're looking for a new badge to add to your collection, these sessions are going to tie directly to the MB 920 exam. In fact, by attending these sessions and leveraging the learning path at aka.ms/MB920, you're going to have everything that you need to sit for the MB 920 exam. Now, for this virtual training day, we're going to be breaking up the ERP apps into 2 different sessions. Today, in part 1, we're going to be discussing the different integration options with the finance and operation apps. We'll also explore the supply chain management tools inside of Dynamics 365. But then, in part 2, we're going to dig into the finance, commerce, and project operations inside of Dynamics. We have a full agenda ahead of us, so why don't we go ahead and get started with our first module. Again, all of this material and more can be found at aka.ms/MB920. So, to kick us off, let's first discuss what an enterprise resource planning system is. You'll probably hear this commonly referred to as an ERP system. And an ERP system is a piece of software that manages an organization's financials, their supply chain, operations, as well as reporting, manufacturing, and all of the HR activities. The way that I like to think of it is that it's running the core process of your business. And typically, an ERP system will integrate with a central database so that you and your organization have insight to all of your business operations. And the best ERP systems allow your organization to analyze transactional data, which is going to give you a more streamlined process and greater efficiency. But that's why we're here today. We're here to discuss the finance and operation apps inside of Dynamics 365, which all come together to form a fully functioning ERP. And over the next 2 sessions, we're going to be exploring the finance app, the commerce apps, the supply chain management, and the human resources apps inside of Dynamics 365. And, I really think you're going to like this lesson. So let's just go ahead and log into the finance and operation system and take a look around. Okay, so for all of my demos today, I'm actually going to be using the sandbox environment inside of the learning path, which is great because if you wanted to go back and try these out for yourself later on, you absolutely can. So you'll notice I'm inside of the lab environment, and this is important because I'm going to not only have a company that I'm working with, but I'm also going to have the administrator access. So the username and password for that system are going to be underneath the resources tab, and you'll also have the instructions. But let's just go ahead and walk through this together. So we are inside of our finance and operations portal right now. And this is going to be my home page or one of the workspaces that I've set up. So over here on the left-hand side, we have our navigation panel. And you can see my home, any favorites, recent workspaces, or modules, which we'll take a look at in a moment. But this is going to be probably where I'll be spending a lot of my time. You can either choose to pin it or you can have it as a flyout menu. Just because I'm working on a smaller screen, I like to have it as a flyout. In the top right-hand corner, this is where you can see what company I'm currently working with, this USMF right here. You can also switch back and forth in case you are working with multiple companies in the same app. But why don't we go ahead and go to our navigation here. I'm going to come down to modules. And I am going to come down here to my system admin. Now, this is where underneath setup, this is where I can actually go through and make any types of changes to my users or any other performance. So what I want to do is I'm actually going to come down here and we're going to go to client performance. All right, so we are in our system administration. And again, this is where if you wanted to see your users or basically manage any settings or any jobs, this is where everything can be done here. Now, we also have our setup, our other settings right here, and you can find this from your home page. This is going to be in that blue navigation bar. But this is where, if you wanted to, you can actually personalize or set any type of preferences. So if we come in here to my preferences, if I wanted to, I could rearrange any of these tiles or these tabs inside of this table right here, or this what we call workspace. I'm not going to do that, but I just wanted to show that you do have that constant customization. What we'll do is we're going to select System Settings. And you can see this is where any data connectors or any settings around currency, language, as well as any type of expiration that I want to set up. This is where you and your administrator can determine what you'd like to have for your organization. This also has your data connectors, where if you wanted to store things like in your Azure Storage or your Azure Key Vault. Now this is where I can set any preferences for my account. And if I actually select preferences here, you can see what company I want to, what I want my default page, what my dashboard is, the time zone that I want it to be loaded in. So this allows me to customize my user experience. Now, if I wanted to, I can also review any other accounts that I might have set up. I have my alias, my name, any type of the network domains, my email, and then I can also customize my workflow here of basically, do I want anytime there's changes in the system or notifications, do I want an email? Now, I can tell you right now, I do not want an email for every notification, so I'm going to keep that off. But once you make any changes, you'll need to select Save, but let's go ahead and go back to that home page. From the home page, I also wanted to show you the search bar right here. So if I wanted to, I can let's type in all vendors. And here we have it. We have our all vendor page. Now, this is just basically a list page. So this has basically master data that we can either read, we can make updates to, we can create data here. And if you wanted to, be careful with this option. You do have the option to delete. That's something, though, that you don't want to use lightly, though. So if we actually select one of our vendors here, so let's actually select Acme right here. This is where we can pull up any related information to that company. And so you can see, I can see their vendor account, their name, and again, because I'm logged in as an admin, I absolutely can make changes to this. But you can see based off of the setup, I have my contacts, any bank accounts, things like that. Now, if I wanted to, if you see this group 40 right here, this is where I can actually change the group to, let's say, for example, instead of our other vendors, let's actually change it to, let's change them to a service vendor. And now I can update their group type, so you can see that this has more than one personalized. Are you sure that I want to replace them? This is the nice thing about the ERP system is it's going to warn you in case you try to make any changes. But I'm not actually going to overwrite it because we're going to use this vendor later on. But if I wanted to, I can put them in different groups together. So I'm going to go ahead and say no, I didn't make any changes, so I don't need to save. Oops, that's still on 20. So let's go ahead and change it back to 40 for our other vendors. And we're good. Just to be safe, I'm going to hit save. Just make sure that we put everything back to where it needs to be. And the last thing I just want to kind of point out as far as the basic navigation goes, over up here, we have kind of our quick links to our different Power apps, to any of our other Microsoft Office attachments, or if you need to do any refresh, or if you want to pop out this page into a new window, you absolutely can. But that's kind of the basic navigation of the finance and operation apps. We'll take a look at in a minute some of the different modules that are available. That was really just a sneak peek of the system. We're going to spend much more time later on in some of our other modules to dig in and look at the different capabilities. But what I want to do now is talk about the workspaces inside of the finance and operation apps. And the way that I want you to think of a workspace is like a personalized work center with data, reports, transactions that are all designed to increase the efficiency of your operations. And we have two different types of workspaces. And depending on the app that you're using, this is basically going to determine the types of workspaces that are available to you. So the first kind of workspace is the analytical workspace. And this is going to come with all of the finance and operation apps. And it can help generate the reports that are really kind of standard inside of Dynamics, but you are going to have customization options. On the other side, we have our mobile workspace. And these are going to be used with the mobile finance and operation apps like timesheets, expenses, as well as the advanced warehouse. And this is extremely helpful because as our workplace grows, well, we have a greater need for a mobile workspace. And within the mobile workspace, your users can sign into the app and basically run their business processes all from a mobile device. So let's actually log back into the finance and operating system and create our own workspace, and so you can see how easy it is to customize it. All right, so I am back inside of our demo environment, and I just want to show you how to customize this workspace. So one of the easiest ways that you can do that is from the home page, you can actually right-click, and then you can see that you can personalize this title page right here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a new workspace. And once that workspace is created, scroll down, I can see my workspace 1. And what I can do is I'm actually going to personalize. So I'm going to right click. I'm going to say personalize my workspace 1. And if I wanted to, I can change the name, but I am going to change this to Chelsea's workspace, just so it's a little bit easier for me to find. All right, so I've named it and it's automatically going to save, but what if I wanted to, I can actually select personalize this page. And if I wanted to, I can move. So I'm going to select this move tool right here. And if I wanted to, I can actually select my workspace tile. And I can move, I don't want to move the whole thing. Just want to move that one. So I'm going to select my workspace. Right, so if I scroll down, I should see my new workspace. Here we go, my workspace 1. And now if I wanted to, I can actually personalize it. Let's give it a new name because my workspace 1 isn't that exciting. Let's change it to Chelsea's workspace, so I know that way it's mine. All right, now if you wanted to, you could move this around, but I'm going to just leave that right here. And now we're going to go back to that all vendors page. So let's actually go back to up here to all vendors. And what I want to do is I now want to add this to my workspace. So I'm going to go to options. I'm going to select to add to workspace. And if I wanted to, I should be able to drop down and select Chelsea's workspace. There we go. That's a workspace. And how do I want it to show up? I'm going to have it show up as a tile. So I'm going to go ahead and select configure. I'm going to say on the standard view, I'm going to go ahead and select OK. I'm going to select OK. And then I should be able to go home. And then if I scroll all the way back down here to my workspace, Chelsea's workspace. There we go. We have my Chelsea's workspace. I have my standard view. So from our all vendor page, we can have a couple different options when it comes to filtering. Underneath options, we have our advanced filter or sort. This allows you to create your own views. You can see I'm currently in my standard view. But you can also filter from the view you have set up. So if I actually scroll over here, let's say that if I wanted to filter based off of my vendor groups, I come over here to my group type. Let's say if I wanted to look only for my vendors that are have the tax authority. So I'm going to go ahead and only search for group 30. I'm going to say exactly 30. Select apply. We can see now that that's sorted that group. And let's say then if I also wanted to filter it based off of alphabetical, which I think it already is, but let's say if I wanted to do Z to A, I can set that up. And if I wanted to, I could then save this view as my own view. So let's just say that this is my group or vendor 30 list, Z to A. I'm going to go ahead and select save. And now you can see that my vendor list has been updated. And if I wanted to do any type of advanced filter and sort, what that's going to do is it's going to pull up my originally used query. So you can see I have all of the different columns that I want, and I have my criteria of 30 set here. Now, if I wanted to, I could actually save this query as a search. So let's say I didn't save the view, but it's a query that I'm running all the time. I can say that this is my vendor list, group 30. And I've now saved it. And if I click OK, you can see right here, if you look at my filter, the group is exactly 30. Now, I haven't put in any of the other information for my vendor list, but this allows my query to automatically have that group 30 in place. But as far as your views and dashboards, you have full customization over it based off of what type of workspaces you want to set up and any type of views or queries that you want to set up. So now that we know how to set up our dashboards, I want to talk about some of the options you have when it comes to exporting Dynamics F&O data into Excel. And this is key because a lot of finance professionals spend most of their time working inside of Excel. And by downloading Dynamics, and we have an add-in that you can add to Excel, you can actually use the Excel data connector to view, to update, and edit the data all within your Excel workbook. And this is extremely helpful when it comes to working with the data entities inside of Excel. And if you're not familiar with the data entities, they're really just simply objects inside of the data model. For example, I might have a vendor entity that has a total of 17 tables and data sources that have been combined into a single entity. So when you open that data entity inside of Excel, it's really easy to view and edit all of that data. And Excel is just one of the many different Microsoft Office integration capabilities. Through the use of the data connector, you can also maintain all of your security permissions since it uses the existing Dynamics 365 OAuth security protocol. And what this means is that your data cannot be downloaded by someone who doesn't already have the correct permissions in place. But the connector just doesn't let you download data. After you're making any changes to an exported file, you can actually publish it back inside Dynamics, and then you can create an Excel workbook as a template by using the workbook designer. And honestly, one of my other favorite integrations with the connector is with the one with Microsoft Outlook. So when you're using the Outlook connector, you can actually sync your Outlook contact tasks, your appointments, and everything else with Dynamics. And there's a built-in wizard that will create and configure the relationship between the user, the employee, and their Outlook account. And that way, if there's any new activity that's been created in Dynamics, it's going to show you how to create that task in Outlook automatically. However, as we look at Excel, that's just one of the ways you can export your data and extract insights. But Dynamics 365 has a built-in tool to create really rich and interactive reports that can be integrated into your application workspace. And all of these graphics and all of these visuals, they're supported by Power BI. But the real power of Power BI, no pun intended, is that you can have multiple data sources. So let's say, for example, you can include a simple sheet with a collection of data from your on-premise data warehouse. Because you can connect all of these data sources together, you get to build that visualization to illustrate the importance of the topics, and then you just share it with the rest of the organization. So on the screen, you can actually see a Power BI dashboard, and it's pulling data from the Salesforce, Explorer, Access, Excel, SQL, as well as third-party things like MailChimp. And it's all going to combine with the data that you have inside of your Dynamics 365 business applications. Now, there is one other integration option that I want to discuss with you. And if you are leveraging the Microsoft Office suite of tools, you might already be using SharePoint to store and organize and really share any documents. And any information within SharePoint can actually be accessed from any device that has a web browser. So if you're using Edge or Explorer, Chrome, or Firefox, you have access to your documents. And what this means is you can add your company's SharePoint site as a location for your model-driven apps. And this makes it nice and easy when it comes to working with things like Word, Excel, and all of your different PowerPoint files. But you know what? This is just the tip of the iceberg. And we're gonna have the rest of today, plus our second session, to really dig our teeth into the finance and operation apps inside of Dynamics 365. But today, I just want to focus on the supply chain management module, which is a beast. So how about this? Why don't we go ahead and take a quick stretch and bio break and make sure that we are fresh and ready for Module 2. So how does a 10-minute break sound? Sound good? Okay, I'll see you right back here in 10 minutes. Welcome back from break. I hope that you were able to stand up and at least stretch, because I know with these virtual training days, it can be hard to sit in front of a screen for long periods of time. And that's why we're actually going to take another break about halfway through this module. But you know what? Let's go ahead and get into our first application of the session, and we'll be looking at the supply chain management tools. And the main benefit of Dynamics 365 supply chain management is that you're going to have an overview of your inventory, your warehouse, the manufacturing process, and the services and any logistics with full analytics that can help you make informed business decisions. So let's go ahead and dig in and discuss some of these products. Now, product information is the backbone of supply chain as well as commerce. And you need a centralized way to store it so that way it's accessible for all parts of your company. Now, there are two different types of products that you'll be responsible for keeping track of in your organization. You'll need to track items. These are the things that you're using to sell or things that are used to manufacture that item. And then we have our product. And this is usually a service, it can be quantified like through an hourly service or basically something that's there to support the process of manufacturing. But you could actually break these two different product types into what we call product or subproducts. Now, first we have a product. This is something that's unique. This is really the core of our product and it doesn't vary. So think of things like a screwdriver or a carton of milk or even an engine. But then we have the product master is what we use to create things called product variants. So the product master, this might be a general shirt. We know what kind of material we want, we know what we want to make it out of, and we know how to make it. But with the product variant, we can make that exact same shirt, but it ranges in different sizes, like let's say from extra small to extra large. And what happens if we offer it in 14 different colors? The product master is giving us that base plan, but the variants have, variances in them. And you need an easy way to store all of this information. And here's the nice thing. If you're a large organization or even a smaller organization, Dynamics 365 can help you maintain all of the details over all of your different products. And so what you're going to want to have is your designers, they're going to need to create the product dimensions. This is going to let us know what is needed for each variant. So what are the colors of the shirts that you're offering? Or what are the different sizes? Or, are there different styles like V-necks or crew cut? You can then think of all of the variants, with the different combinations. So for example, maybe you have a small red V-neck shirt, a medium red V-neck shirt, and a large red V-neck shirt. And, I kind of think you see the pattern where I'm going with this. But once you have all your variants, you can actually set up how they are stored inside of your warehouse. Because different shirt sizes or different materials may have different storage needs. And if you wanted to, depending on the product, you can even assign serial numbers to products so that way they're easy to trace for things like quality assurance or warranties. Now, I don't want you worrying about and thinking that this is a complicated process. Let me actually log into the supply chain app and I'll show you how easy it is to configure a new product. All right, so we are still in that lab environment. And what I want to do is I want to come over here to that left-hand side navigation pane, and we're going to go to our modules. We did this earlier, but this time what we're going to do is we're going to come down to product information management. And then what we're going to do is underneath products, we are looking for our released products. Because what we're going to do is we are going to create a new item for some cabinets that we are purchasing from a vendor. All right, so these are all the released products that I currently have, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new product. So I'm going to come up here to the top navigation bar and select New. And I want to make sure that my product type is an item. So there we go. My product subtype should be product, and so everything looks good here. But now for our tracking dimension group, I'm going to select none. Now you can see here, I only have a couple required components, and this is something you can customize as a system admin. But what I'm going to do is under the product number, I'm going to enter in GTL 007. Oops. GTL. All right. And then in the product name here, I'm going to name this cabinet. And this is where I am now going to enter in the measurement for that inventory. So we can see that the inventory unit is going to be an each, same thing with purchase and sales unit. But if I drop down, you can see that there's different units I can pick from. In this case, I'm going to use the eaches. Now, if I scroll down just a little bit more, we can look at things like the sales taxation. For the sales tax group, what I am going to do is I am going to select all. And then same thing for my purchase taxation. All right. Now for my purchase price, what I can do now is this is where I can put in how much I am purchasing it for, and I am going to purchase it for $30. And I am going to then set my sales price for $30 as well. All right. Now, I do have some reference groups here, and this is where if I wanted to figure out how I wanted to calculate my inventory, you see that FIFO and LIFO. I'm going to go ahead and take the FIFO approach, so the first in, first out. And then for my item group, I'm going to put it for TV and video, because these are cabinets for our AV products. And finally, for the storage dimension group, this is where I can add in my site warehouse. And this is letting me know where I'm going to store it. And so this is going to be basically the product. This is all of the information that's going to be loaded about that particular product that I am adding to my warehouse or into my inventory. So I'm going to select OK. And I want to make sure that my product is finalized. So we can see the cabinet right here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure that I'm under this product tab right here. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to select validate. And you can see that all of my fields have been validated and my product's been added. So now that you have your product set up, you may need to adjust how you sell your products. Because think about it. You might need to offer different prices to a vendor who is purchasing your products to resell it. Or, that case, you might want to offer them a wholesale discount. Or maybe you have a particular product that you're trying to clear out of the warehouse and make way for version 2. In that case, you may want to offer a discount on it. No matter how you decide to manage your prices or your discounts, there's an easy way to control different pricing and different discount structures. And you can create all sorts of different discounts from the sales and marketing menu inside of the supply chain app. You can add it to a price for a specific product, or you can create a line discount on a quote or a sales order for a group of items. And if you wanted to, you could even add a multi-line discount. But you know what? If that's not enough, you could even just add a flat discount off a total amount of an order. And if you actually look here on the screen, you can see it's really just a simple check for which different customer groups have access to that pricing. But I do want to pause here before I move on to our next area, is that I am going to be kind of jumping from topic to topic relatively quickly. And, the purpose of this class is not to teach you the supply chain process itself, but more what we'll be discussing is the tools available inside of Dynamics. So our next area, we're going to actually skip ahead and we're going to cover the warehouse and inventory management, because you're going to have to manage your products, the variants, and you need to know how you're going to keep track of everything in that process. And that's why I want to start with a purchase order, or more commonly, you might hear it referred to as a PO. And a PO it's a document, and it's basically an agreement to buy a good or service. But this is a key document that's going to come into play when we look at some of the different finance tools. And, we're actually going to create one in the system here in a minute, but there are 3 different types of POs that you can create. You can have a journal, which think of this more as like a draft PO. There really isn't any impact to your warehouse counts. It's just a working PO that hasn't been finalized yet. And then we have our traditional purchase order that basically this is a confirmed order. And that is the most common type of PO. But we also have a return order or a return to vendor, or you might hear it as an RTV. It has just a couple different names, and I'm sure there's more depending on your industry. But this is what's issued when products have been returned. There's a couple other inventory topics, or related documents that I think that are important for you to understand. Your warehouse managers and anyone working in the warehouse need to know what to do when a new product arrives. For example, what happens if it needs to be refrigerated? You need to have those inbound instructions to let your team know what to do with it. And this is often going to be paired with cross-docking, which basically is a process that tells your warehouse manager how much of the product needs to be put away instead of being staged for any type of additional processing. But I promised you earlier that we're going to create a purchase order, so let's go ahead and log into the system now. Okay, so we are still inside of our lab environment. You can see I'm still in my Contoso Entertainment Systems, also as the USMF. And just a reminder, this is inside of that learning path. But to create a purchase order, what I'm going to do is that's going to be underneath my modules. So I'll come to the navigation bar, drop down underneath modules, and purchase orders live under procurement and sourcing. So I'm going to select procurement and sourcing, and then I'm going to expand this menu right here for purchase orders. And I want to select all purchase orders. All right, very similar to when we were looking at my all vendors list earlier. Just the difference is this is going to be all of my purchase orders. And to create one, I'm going to just come up here to the top and select new. And that's one of the things you'll notice as you go through. The interface is pretty similar from module to module, from application to application. So to create that purchase order, the first thing that I need to do is I'm going to need to select a vendor account. Now I'm going to select an existing one that I already have. So it's going to be US-101. And basically what happens is when I select that vendor, you can see that everything's getting pulled in from that vendor record. So we have the address, the invoice account, any of our delivery terms, and basically anything else that we've associated with that vendor account is going to be pulled in with here. And if I make changes to the vendor account, it will also update all of the purchase orders with this. So I'm going to go ahead and let that go. And now I have my vendor account and the name associated with it. Now, I do want to come down here. You can see all that information's been populated, but let's take a look at our general. So this is where I have my purchase order number, the purchase type, invoice, all of that. But what I want to come down here is I want to come down to my storage dimensions. So essentially, you can see I have all of my site options here. Now, this is basically saying where these goods or these services, whatever I'm ordering, where they need to go. So by default, the delivery address is going to be listed. But if I wanted to specify, to this vendor where I want this to be delivered, I can choose that here. All right, so that's the site menu. Now, if we wanted to pick a date, this is where we can actually select the date itself for when I want the delivery to occur or when do I need the items by. Now, if we come down here to our administration, and I actually go down here to the orderer, this might be helpful if you have multiple contacts or people who might be working with that specific vendor. So you can see here, these are going to be the typical people, you can see both employees and contractors within my organization who have the correct permissions to place purchase orders. So it's going to be a a permissions type thing. Let me just go ahead and leave it cancel that and leave it as Julia. All right, so everything looks good, and I'm going to go ahead and create this purchase order. Okay, so our purchase order has been created, but if I need to work with the purchase order itself, what I can do is I can switch from the lines to the header. And when I do that, that gives me all of the information that I can make changes to. So I'm going to come back to my purchase order lines, and I'm going to scroll down, and I'm actually going to select my purchase order lines right here. And so this basically allows me to make changes to the lines itself. And what I want to do is I'm going to actually scroll through, and from the display, I'm going to select dimensions. And this is an important thing that you may want to add to your purchase order because your products, and remember all those different variants we discussed, can vary based off of size, based on color, or even the style itself. And so you want to make sure that you are set up to actually store those dimensions, especially, a shirt may be small, but if we're talking large pieces of equipment, you want to make sure either that site or the warehouse is ready for it. And, if there are any type of products that are going to have batches or serial numbers associated with them, you're just going to want to be able to have that dimension as part of the purchase order, so that way everything's easily tracked. So what I'm going to do is I am actually going to then come over here from the product dimensions. I'm going to select color. And this is where, if I wanted to, I have the color, I have the site, I have the warehouse, everything else looks good. So I'm going to select OK. Now this is where, if I wanted to, I could just enter in an item number that I'm wanting to add to my purchase order. So I'm going to select item number, and I'm going to type in T0004. All right. And the nice thing is I could absolutely drop down and select, choose this from a drop-down list, but I think it's a lot faster to search by that item number. So I have the product name, the item group, the way it needs to be purchased. So I'm going to go ahead and select enter to add it to my line. And now, because I did say I wanted to select the color, if I scroll over here to the right, you can see the color is now required. So let's see all the different color combinations there are. All right, you know what? I think I am going to let's choose silver. Silver sounds pretty. And as far as my quantity, I want 10 of them. All right, now there are some other pieces of information that you can include, like the unit price, and if you have any discounts or anything else associated with that, you can then add those in here. But basically, everything else looks good. I don't think I'm going to make any other changes here. So I am going to go ahead and just make sure everything else looks good. And if I see here at the line details, if I come down here and I select delivery, this is where I can set up the delivery date. Basically, the delivery date is going to be automatically inherited from the purchase order itself, but you can always change that if you need to. But that's pretty much all of the different things that you can do when it comes to the purchase order, but it's going to vary from organization to organization. So now that we've created the purchase order, I wanted to explain what happens after an order has been placed. So after an order has been placed, the items in the order need to be picked in the warehouse, and then they need to be packed for shipping. An output order is going to be considered the advanced picking function that links the sales orders and the transfer orders with the picking lists. And when the picking lists are generated from either sales orders or transfer orders, they're all going to be automatically created. Now, what a picking list has is a one-to-one relationship with the shipment. The transfer order shipment, or the sales order packing slip, can be processed from the shipment itself. Now, you have the option to set up outbound rules which define how the program should handle the outbound process. And you can use these rules to control the shipment process. You could actually use the rules to control during which stage in the process a shipment can be sent out. You can also automatically reserve inventory for a specific sales order if you want. And when you do this, that reserved inventory cannot be withdrawn from the warehouse for any other orders unless it's that reserved instance. And, it's going to stay locked unless that inventory reservation is canceled. Ooh, and you know what? I do want to mention, you can only place reservations on stocked products, so you can't do rain checks with it. But the inventory that's assigned to an order, your warehouse team is going to need to pick it. And picking can happen in a few different ways. For example, you could use something called cluster picking. And this is where you have workers who are picking all the items from a single location in a warehouse, but it's for multiple orders. And we'll get into the items before moving on to the next area that go along with picking. But the reason I bring this up is that it's helpful in cutting down the potential running back and forth in a warehouse. And, another thing that's important inside of your warehouse is inventory levels, because there is an extremely fine line of understocking and overstocking. And managing the warehouse replenishment means that you are ensuring that each picking location basically has the optimal quantity of products for a smooth and efficient picking process. And if you have an empty picking slot, that basically means that you have an empty shelf on a location in your store, which can lead to a lost sale and a lost revenue. So for your warehouse, if you fail to replenish properly, it can lead to things like inventory shortages or an inaccurate stock count, and basically you have a reduction in your service levels. So in order to maintain those inventory levels, Dynamics 365 has two different tools that can help your warehouse managers. First, we need a way to count the inventory that we have inside of a specific location in the warehouse. So you can create something called a journal with the warehouse name, the location, and all the item counts that are there. And basically, after you have an initial count, you can view the inventory transactions that either add or remove inventory. Typically, companies have multiple shipments and multiple receipts of inventory every single day, and these movements are constantly changing the on-hand inventory status. So the mobile workspace for on-hand inventory is going to provide you with an instant view of the on-hand status across all of your different facilities. And you can also see current material reservations and basically any unreserved on-hand inventory that you have. If you wanted, you can enter the item numbers and look up that on-hand inventory, and basically you can do searches for all of your on-hand products or product variants. Okay, so we've looked at the picking process and we've looked at the inventory process, but I want to quickly touch on how you can configure the warehouse to meet your needs. And because the way that you set up your warehouse physically, that also needs to be represented in your warehouse management system. Like, let's say, for example, in a warehouse, there might be some equipment that can help workers move the products around. Think of things like forklifts or ladders. And your warehouse staff need to be able to put away items or pick items or perhaps move them from one location to another inside of that warehouse. Some other common, things that warehouse staff need to do is they need to rearrange products to make space within a particular location in case there are any type of new arrivals. And so that means that your workers are going to be walking up and down aisles to pick or put away all of those items for the orders. Now, the warehouse management system inside of Dynamics 365 Supply Chain makes it simple to set up your warehouse layout to help meet those changing needs. So that way you can optimize your warehouse efficiency. And there are so many different configuration templates that are available. And, depending on your scenario, you might find them useful. And so when we look at how you can configure your own warehouse, you're going to have to enable a few different things. First, you'll need to set up a zone group. This is basically a grouping of zones, think of physical locations inside of the warehouse. And each of those locations, we call them zones. So then what you have is you have location profiles. And these basically explain what can be stored in a particular area or if there's a capacity for that area. The last thing that you'll need to set up, and this is the smallest level, it's a location. This is how you are tracking the on-hand inventory and where it can be picked from inside of the warehouse. And with all of these settings, you can set up that specific to your warehouse. So, for example, there might be areas where you can only have a certain type of forklift or a certain type of ladder. Or if your company has both production and finished goods within the same facility, you may want to have a single warehouse inside of supply chain management, but then you have two different operations by creating two different zone groups. And inside of Dynamics 365 Supply Chain Management, the warehouse management tool gives you visibility into your shipping, your inventory, and your receiving. And you can integrate the warehouse management with other business processes like transportation or manufacturing or quality control, purchase, transfer, sales, or even returns. And with warehouse management, really where it's helpful is that you can make sure that you're not running out of stock and you're not overstocking your shelves. So how about this? Why don't we go ahead and log into the supply chain app and let's go ahead and create our own warehouse. Okay, so when it comes to creating a warehouse, it's actually a very simple process that can save you a lot of headache up front. So like usual, we're going to come up here to our navigation and we are going to come down here to our inventory. I know my alphabet, inventory management. And then we are going to come over here on the right-hand side. We have setup. And then we're going to come to our inventory breakdown, and specifically our warehouses. So this is where we can see all of our different warehouses that we have currently associated with our USMF company. Guess what we're going to do? We are going to create a new one. All right, so new right here at the top in that navigation bar. And for our warehouse, let's just name it 101. We'll have warehouse number 101, and let's make an overflow warehouse. All right, as far as the site, where this is going to be something that we would have created in the past, let's say that this is for our home foam production. And so you can see that's going to type in the site name. And then if I want to see all of my different location names, come down here. This is where I can choose to add in things like my aisle as well as my rack options. All right, so if I wanted to have aisles or racks, all of that can be done here. So let's just say I want to add in an aisle and we can see the location. Now, I'm going to come back up here to my warehouses. And when I select my warehouse, I have this thing called the location wizard. So I'm going to open up this location wizard. And this wizard is what can help me set up all the different locations inside of my warehouse. And it walks you through based off of what you've selected up to this point. So let's say I just wanted to keep, maybe I'm doing everything except for my, I'm doing outbound, picking locations, and bulk locations. Okay, it needs an inventory aisle. Okay, one more time. I don't know why. I don't like this half, so we're gonna do it one more time. All right, and so this wizard is what's gonna help you create all the different locations inside of your warehouse. So based off of what you previously selected, it's going to recognize like, hey, you said you wanted aisles, or hey, you wanted shelves. So I'm gonna go ahead and just I'm not gonna get into a whole lot of customization as far as this goes, but I just wanted you to see that this is gonna help you create your aisles. And then if you wanted to change the aisle numbers, you get to name them. And then as far as your docks, how many docks do you want to create? So you have one for your inbound docks, and you also have them for your outbound docks. And so you can just edit all the way through any of your picking locations. And then again, if you wanted to specify the depth of your locations. And so this is really important because depending on your product sizes, you can only store certain products in certain shelves or certain aisles. So this allows you to edit it. Then how are you creating your bulk locations? The sizes for those. Again, what you want to name it, the location of them. And now, there you go. And there you go. Everything's been created, and we have Warehouse 101 that we can then use to direct product to or store product in. As you can see, the warehouse management system inside of supply chain management gives you flexible ways to define your warehouse layout to meet the changing needs, so that way you have optimized your warehouse efficiency. I do want to spend a little bit more time on how you can manage the shop floor based off of the type of product that you're storing, or even based off of your own manufacturing strategy. However, we've been going for a little bit, so why don't we go ahead and take a quick break, and that way when we come back, we can pick up with the rest of Module 2, covering Dynamics 365 Supply Chain Management.